We average people in our spiritual journeys might as well be blind men listening to other blind men describing an elephant in the famous Indian parable Blind Man and an Elephant. So, how are we supposed to find everlasting life, meaning in life, and or salvation? Let's talk about the methodology that we're going to use in finding those things. Fellow discombobulated, disconcerted, and befuddled average people lost in our spiritual journeys. Welcome to Average Man's Spiritual Quest. I'm your host, Benedict. If you enjoy talking about our confusions on this channel, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like and notification buttons. So let's talk about some of the contradictory things that we hear from various different religions. Some say God is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, and He's deeply engaged with the everyday lives of us, and He is watching everything so that He can judge us later on. He's watching everything we do? Hasn't He ever heard of the word privacy before? That makes me a little bit uncomfortable, but be that as it may. Other religions basically said, well, no, we're not sure whether God exists or not, and that's really not the important question, but we need to work ourselves to free us from the bondage of and suffering of life, recurring through samsara, reincarnation. And some religions say one of the primary functions of God is to judge us, and our lives are basically a big test, like SAT, for instance. If we pass it, we go to heaven. If we fail it, we go to hell, and we burn for eternity. Those are just totally opposite things, aren't they? And some other religions, like New Age religions and Gnosticism, some part of it, and Theosophy, they say, well, yeah, there is God, and God created the universe and everything, but God is not judging us. He's not testing us. God is full of love, and He is waiting for us to evolve spiritually so that we can become and absorbed into Him and become part of Him. Oh, that's an interesting thought. It sort of sounds like, those religions have picked and chose certain elements of the Abrahamic religions and the Hinduism and Buddhism religions and sort of developed a new sort of package, if you will. So what do we make of them? Well, in the act of making the determination, we need to think a little bit about how we think, how our brain functions. Believe me, it is relevant. I looked up how do we think on the internet, and I'm told that our brains have these neurons which releases neurotransmitters, and they spark electrical signals, and as these things propagate out to thousands of other cells and neurons, our thoughts are formed. But it also says that it is a theory. So apparently science does not know exactly how we think. But, that much we already knew. We learned that stuff in high school. So it's not very much help in guiding us in our spiritual thinking. All right? So let's just look at the way our brains work. Between us. Okay? Well, I'll talk primarily by observing the way my brain works. The first step is, we've got to have data in our brains to do thinking. Without data, we can't think. So how do we absorb? How do we collect data? Well, the answer is pretty simple, ain't it? Through our five senses: sight, smell, taste, hearing, and touch. Everything we know came through those five portals. But Hindus and Buddhists say there is a sixth portal, and they call that the third eye. We talked about it last time. So through these six senses, we collect data. We absorb data. The next step then is, so with those data, how do we normally think? All right, the first thing I can think of is, like when you daydream. All right, you got away from your hustle and bustle job, and you got away from your, cantankerous boss, and you're reclining under a beach parasol in Fiji, and you have a cocktail in your hand, and in front of you spreads this beautiful turquoise water and everything, and when you daydream like that, do you daydream with words, language? No, you daydream with images, don't we? Sort of like making a movie kind of a thing. So we tend to think with images. Well, we also think with languages. English, Korean, French, Chinese, whatever. And mathematics too. Math is a language. But what I don't really know is that, do we really think with languages? Like, do we think blah, 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 without saying anything but in our head using English? Or does thought percolate out from somewhere mysterious, and then only when we try to translate it into something that other people can understand so that we can communicate our thoughts, we use language? I don't know. And as far as I know, not that I know a whole lot, I'm not sure science has figured that one out exactly just yet either. The third way we think is through what philosophers would love to call abstract thought, abstract concept. Okay, so what kind of things are we talking about when we say pure abstract thought? Well, let's think about 1 plus 1. 1 plus 1 equals 2. Oh, here's an abstract thought we call 1. Here's another abstract thought we call 1. And we sort of put it close together and we go, oh, there are 2. Is that an abstract thought pre-existing before humans? Or is that a kind of a construct that humans developed to be able to communicate with one another? I don't know. And as far as I know, but again, not that I know a whole lot, science doesn't really know that either. And then there is apparently another sort of mode of us thinking. That is transcendental thinking. You've heard of the word transcendental meditation from the Indian gurus on our TV channels and all those things. What does that mean, transcendental? Apparently, it means what we talked about, above and beyond the 5 senses. You develop the third eye, you begin to see the entire universe and perceive it, and at that level, you begin to think transcendentally. I think that's what they mean, because, I can't give you any better explanation for it, because I've never gotten close enough to a transcendental state of things. So that's another way we think, I'm told. And of course the final mode of thinking is a jumbled combination of all of the above. But why do we think? What are we trying to do? Especially relating to our spiritual quest. We're trying to reach some kind of a resolution, some kind of a determination, leading to a decision. Okay, so let's call it determination. Now there are a couple of different ways we do that too. So for instance, in science, you've heard of such words as hypotheses and theories. And that way of thinking is thanks to Francis Bacon of England, who came along in the 16th century, I think, at the height of Renaissance, and he decided, well, we're in Renaissance, and everything is changing, art is changing, philosophy is changing, and theology is changing. Well, science needs to change too, and we need to have some kind of an intellectual framework to make sure that our inquiries are reliable. So hence came the idea of hypotheses and theories and the experimentation and observation and the resulting data that support the theory and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure you remember from high school. So do you see the problem in using the scientific methodology of inquiry in spiritual journey. We can't very well observe God with a telescope or under a microscope or conduct an experiment on him. So it's the least suitable methodology. Another way we humans determine things is, in my mind, I like it the least, although I did quite a bit of it. I'm talking about the deductive reasoning that is prevalent in philosophy and certain areas of theology. Well, what is deductive reasoning? I'll give you a simple example. A syllogism. A equals B, B equals C, therefore A must equal C too. So that's kind of a pure deductive reasoning. But for our purposes in spiritual matters, it is not as satisfactory as it could be. For instance, the first part of the syllogism, A equals B. Let's sort of translate it into something that loosely resembles this syllogism. God is omnipotent. Oh, omnipotent means he can create the universe. Therefore God must have created the universe. Well, that's 3 steps. I know this is not a perfect syllogism, but for our purposes, it sort of serves the function. But what I want to ask is the first part, A equals B, meaning God is omnipotent. That first part, how do we know that that's true? Then the inevitable answer we get is, very, very devout people praying very, very deeply and very, very earnestly, and God appeared in front of them, or Jesus appeared in front of them, and that's how they know. Now, that is not part of the syllogism, is it? So, the pure syllogistic thinking doesn't do it for me, as far as spiritual pursuit is concerned. Somehow or other, we'll have to rely on data provided by somebody, whether it's us or somebody else, whether it's Christian or Muslim or Hindu or Buddhist, whoever. We're really talking about inductive reasoning. So let me give you a quick example of inductive reasoning. Let's say I live in a beachfront community, and at 10:30 in the morning, I feel a rumble under my feet. Oh my God, it's an earthquake. After about a minute, it goes away. Oh, I'm okay. Oh, gee. And then about half an hour later, the beachfront houses are hit by a tsunami. My God. And then about 15, 20 minutes later, you begin to see the entire horizon and half the sky down south is filling with black smoke. Out of these 3 facts, you begin to figure, I think there was probably a volcanic eruption down south. That's where we got the tsunami. See that? That's inductive reasoning, that's all. In other words, inductive reasoning basically takes a look at data, the more the better, from experiences. And we look at those data and try to see some kind of a pattern in it that explains the phenomena that we want to investigate. Now, a Christian or a Muslim who says, I talked with Jesus, that's a piece of data. And Hindus and Buddhists saying, when I reached enlightenment, I saw how the entire universe functions and our place in it. And you haven't, because you haven't developed your third eye, and you are only relying on your 5 senses, and with your 5 senses you can never see it. Well, that's data too. In the end, I guess I am desirous of credible empirical evidence from somebody. I don't see it, but some people claim that they see it. And those empirical evidence are the ones that will probably affect my thinking most. And I'll have to do my best to be reasonable, but maintain a high standard in deciding whether to trust their observations or not. The question is, what methodology are we going to use in doing just that? The point of this video, what mode of investigation, what mode of reaching a determination is available to us? And that is thinking like a lawyer or thinking like a juror. You know, I told you I'm a lawyer. I used to try cases. Well, is that why I'm talking about this? No. I've reached a conclusion a long time ago that thinking like a lawyer, thinking like a juror is obviously not perfect. You know, we often convict the wrong guy and send him to prison for decades and whatnot. I know. But it is as good as it can get within the realm of practicality. So let me give you an example, okay? I'm working hard late at night at my office. You know, I got something to turn in to the court tomorrow morning. And then I hear a loud bang right next door where John is. So I rush over there and open the door, and I see John lying dead with blood spurting out of his heart. Oh my God, and next to him stands Sally with tears running down her beautiful cheeks. And she has a pistol in her hand. And out of the muzzle, I see small puffs of white smoke still coming out. Also, there's a dude named Leroy in our office, kind of an obnoxious guy, and he happens to be in love with Sally. But Sally doesn't want to have anything to do with him because he's such an obnoxious person. And he has been telling everybody that I heard in the rumor mill that, oh, John and Sally, there's something going on. Okay? And you are the juror. So has Sally murdered John? Let's think about that for a minute. We don't have any direct evidence at all. I did not see Sally pull the trigger, shooting the bullet into John's heart and killing him and John dropping dead. I didn't see it. And that was never captured in the CCTV. There's no CCTV. So what I saw was indirect evidence. And of course, what Leroy is saying is even less reliable. First of all, he didn't hear from John or Sally themselves that they are going out together. So what he's saying is a hearsay evidence. We are very suspicious of hearsay evidence. Also, he is in love with Sally and he has been spurned by Sally. So he is angry and he's jealous of John. Oh, he's biased on top of hearsay. So the probative value of whatever John has to say is even less reliable. So you, a juror, is thinking, okay, so how long did it take for Benedict to rush to John's office? Maybe 4 seconds. Is it possible that Sally rushed in there just before Benedict and had just enough time to be surprised to see John lying there dead and a gun lying next to him? So she absentmindedly picked it up and she began to cry, and that's when Benedict barged in and saw what he saw. Oh. Well, as a traveler through the spiritual landscape, the kind of thing that we, the average people, can only engage in is this process of thinking, which is largely inductive reasoning. Okay? And that's the mode of investigation toward determining what spiritual teachings are acceptable to us or not, or to what degree. Let's be jurors in the next video and think about if ghosts exist. Okay? That's going to be fun. And if ghosts exist according to our determination as jurors, then it follows that afterlife exists as well. Ooh. So let's have some fun next time. Okay? Thank you. Bye bye.